We can see corruption in the church hierarchy. We can see corruption in the secular hierarchy, if you will. These are high offices in both cases, certainly in the church's case, but even in the secular case, they all come from God. So these are sacred offices. And so we see these human beings getting in there and then not fulfilling the demands of those sacred offices.
What does the Synod on Synodality and the Republicans have in common? Well, there are members that are really rejecting truth itself, wouldn't you say? I would. We're going to have a conversation with Jim Havens, host of The Simple Truth, coming up at 30 past the hour. Let's talk about the age of confusion and what laity ought to do to remain faithful when they have to choose between bad and worse. What do we do? Jim Havens will join us to talk more about that. And then don't forget, we have our upcoming conference and gala dinner in New York in Niagara Falls coming up August the 24th. We want you to be there. Candace Owens is coming. Bishop Strickland's coming. Father Mattega's coming. Jim Havens is going to be there. Raymond DeRorio's coming. I'm going to be there. And even producer Jake. We want to hang out with you too. Go to thestationofthecross.com for the details and to get registered today.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
One of our programs that we love very much is The Simple Truth, weekdays 4 p.m. Eastern, all across the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network and iCatholic Radio, the host of which is Jim Havens, and he joins us this morning. I saw this report out of the Catholic World Report. Republicans remove right to life plank from party platform. Why? I'm just like, that was one of the big key distinctions between them and, say, the Democrats, who embraced the culture of death wholeheartedly. What are the Republicans doing? It just boggles my mind. What do you think, Jim Havens?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. It's political expediency, political idolatry, really. And this is a calculation that Trump and his team have made to say that, they don't believe they can win if they have a strong pro-life platform, if they have strong pro-life policy. And so when you hear from Trump, like you heard at the debate, or you hear from Republicans who are all rallying around this idea, what we're hearing from them is basically, hey, I'm unapologetically pro-life. I'm 100% pro-life. But now it's back to the states. That's where it needs to be, back to the states. Well, that's not unapologetically pro-life. That's not 100% pro-life. So I think they think people are pretty dumb. And I think there's a lot of people that are seeing through it all. And I would just encourage people to really look at the facts of it. What we see in the platform that just came out is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. They've completely backed down from the fight. I think that they ought to take up the fight. Not only is it the right thing to do, but I do believe it would help them electorally, even though they're reading it where they think it's a Pickett's charge, where it's an inevitable loss. I would say if we don't fight on this, if we concede this ground, then we're letting the Democrats take this issue, take the field, frame it however they want to frame it, and just bludgeoned the other side with that. And it's sad to see. We've been calling for this, by the way, on the Friday show of The Simple Truth, always dedicated to pro-life, 4 p.m. Eastern every Friday for the pro-life show on The Simple Truth, the Station of the Cross iCatholic Radio app. And we've been saying we've got to call on Trump. We've got to call on the Republicans during the primary process to take a strong stand on life. Is there even one candidate who will do that? Nobody really did. And now they're all backing down. And the platform is a bunch of nonsense. It mentions the 14th Amendment, which is that all people have equal rights under the law. And then it says, but let's kick it to the states and murder people if we want to murder them. It's up to the states how they want to murder children. That's totally fine. Well, that's not the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is all people under the law. Every human being is a human person. And so that's protecting all people. The Supreme Court needs to rule on it. That's what our elected officials need to be saying. That's what our church leaders need to be saying. That's what our pro-life leaders need to be saying. Sadly, pretty much nobody is saying it and proclaiming the truth day in and day out. And so this is why we're in the mess that we're in. And, you got to take it back a few steps to see what has gotten us to this point. But it's a terrible point that we're at right now.
Do you think that they're hoping to capitalize on that by stealing more of those moderate middle grounders who aren't so pro-life as you and I would be? Is that this strategy, hoping to win that middle ground, capture the White House, maybe even Congress in the Senate, and therefore maybe be more pro-life? Could they make that argument?
Sure, they can make that argument, and I think that is probably what they would say. The problem with that argument is that you cannot do an evil to bring about a good. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're saying that the ends justify the means. We can say we're for murdering children to a large degree, which is what the Republicans are saying right now. Trump is saying, the Republicans are saying they're for the abortion pill, even though if Trump gets in the executive branch, as the head of the executive branch, he could make moves through the FDA. He could take executive action to stop that abortion pill, the chemical abortion pill, by which the vast majority of abortions occur. He could stop that at once. He's saying he won't do that. He's for it. He's in favor of the abortion pill, is what he's saying. Now, our best hope is that he's lying. And that's, a sad place to be. He may be lying. And that's, again, our best hope. Maybe he gets into office and he says, just kidding. I just needed to get elected. And then he does a bunch of pro-life things. But that's what we're, I guess, betting on right now in voting for him, is that it's a binary choice. If it's him and Biden or whoever the Democrat candidate is, of course, one is better than the other on life, although that margin is getting smaller and smaller. And so in a binary choice, I vote for Trump. I have to. That's where we're at. It's pretty sad that's where we're at. And again, I put a lot of this blame at the mainstream leaders of the pro-life movement, who haven't been holding his feet to the fire between elections, haven't been lobbying. Instead, they're just on perpetual fundraising mode. And that's what we're getting from pro-life organizations, pro-life leaders. That's a big problem. Also, the bishops have not been proclaiming the truth and leading on this as they ought to do, which is another massive problem here.
Yeah, in this article, which we're linking to in the show notes, by the way, Florida Senator Marco Rubio seems to think it's a smart, prudent move. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, praised the platform, saying it demonstrates the Republican Party remains strongly pro-life at the national level. I mean, really? Why can't we just say this is not good, it doesn't work, it's wrong, we shouldn't be doing it? And exactly what you just said. Maybe I have to make this choice because it's the lesser of two evils. But why do they make excuses for it? That's what gets me. Why are they making excuses for it? This same platform that they're changing at the RNC, not only does it do away with the right to life language in the platform, but it specifically now says we want to support contraception, support in vitro fertilization. This is like bizarre. It's bizarre to me. They have no idea what they're doing here, do they?
They don't. Yeah, they're perpetuating the culture of death. They're going along and promoting it now. I mean, when you have Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Katie Britt come out and start saying how wonderful IVF is, when we know that it's destroying human life at the earliest stages of development, it's treating human life like a commodity and just treating it like trash. And hey, we could freeze these children indefinitely if we want. We could just throw them away if we want. Whatever we want to do, they're ours. They're our property. These are human beings. These are human persons. We were all that size once, and we need to use our voices. It's by the grace of God that we have the gift of our lives here, that we made it out of situations like that, made it out of the womb. We've got a responsibility to use our voices to proclaim the truth on this. And when we've got Republican leaders like that trying to act like they don't even know that IVF destroys human life and just talk about how wonderful it is, they're just lying to our faces. And it's absolutely despicable. People need to wake up and understand what's going on. And we need to stand against it, speak against it. So I appreciate folks like you, Joe, using your platform to do that.
It seems like injustice is the law of the land anymore these days, both in the church politics and in secular politics. So how do lay faithful, how do they sort through all that? How do they remain faithful despite the age of confusion?
Well, the number one thing that I always go back to is, look, we can see corruption in the church hierarchy. We can see corruption in the secular hierarchy, if you will. And so, look, what do we see there? What is that corruption? These are high offices in, I would say, in both cases, certainly in the church's case, but even in the secular case, when we think about these offices, they all come from God. So these are sacred offices. And so we see these offices, these sacred offices, human beings getting in there and then not fulfilling the demands of those sacred offices. We're not asking for perfection here. We're asking for a reasonable standard by which one ought to meet in those offices. Well, we can see that that's the big problem, right? And so my big thing is, let's make sure that we're taking that back into whatever office it is that we hold, which for many of us, it's our vocation, being a husband and a father, a wife and a mother, whatever it is, a priest in a parish, whatever that office is that you are called to, that you have committed yourself to, we've got to fulfill the demands of that office. So there is a reasonable standard that we are called to meet. And so at least we need to be meeting that, but we ought to have a heart that is running forward in love of our Lord to fulfill it to the full by God's grace, to do everything we can, to be the best we can be in fulfilling that office. And so that all comes back to what we hear in Scripture: sanctify yourselves, right? And so our prayer lives, we got to make sure that they are squared away. And we've got to make sure that we are advancing there, which is to continue to advance and having a recollected heart throughout the day. And that begins by having pillars of prayer that you're committed to. In the church, traditionally, that's a pillar of morning prayer, a pillar of evening prayer. Make those commitments, stick to them day in and day out. And then in between, really strive to pray without ceasing, to have that recollected heart, even in the midst of all that we're called to do. Look, we've got to do that. That is a standard that we're held to, each and every one of us, to just answer the call of holiness that we're all called to. And so in doing that, that's the only way that we're going to be able to participate with the grace to fulfill those offices that people are counting on us to fulfill. There are others that are entrusted to our care. We must not let them down. So I just think we have to be faithful to the prayer lives and to the state of life that we're in, our vocations. And that's where we have to make sure that foundation is squared away. And then on top of that, there's other things that we can get into, but I think we've got to make sure the foundation is strong.
Okay, so to your point, we pursue holiness and our state in life, but as lay people, should we be running for office? And if we run for office, do you think we should compromise in the least bit way on anything that pertains to faith and morals, especially? Like, I know we can compromise on, say, how taxes work or whatever, but can we compromise on the dignity of the human person made in the image and likeness of God, the right to life from conception to natural death? Should we compromise on things like IVF and contraception? I mean, even if we never get elected, should we compromise? I guess that's my question.
Right. So first, sanctify ourselves and then go sanctify the temporal order. And so we need to be prayerfully discerning about what that means for each and every one of us. And there's an obligation to vote, and there's an obligation to get good candidates to be able to vote for. You know, you go back to the 1975 pro-life plan put forward by the U.S. bishops at that time. It was rock solid. In fact, it's not easy to find it online. It's kind of been scrubbed because it's been successively watered down over the years by the USCCB. But in that 1975 plan, they said, look, we're going to elect pro-life people that are going to get in there. This is 2 years after Roe and Doe, and we're going to get them in there, and they are going to get a constitutional amendment. That was the strategy at the time, and we're going to be done with this thing. We're going to protect life. And even if we can't find those candidates, even if they don't exist out there, we're going to rise them up, and we're going to have these congressional district groups. I mean, this is the church saying we're going to come together with these congressional district groups. We're going to build them up, and we're going to go out and make this thing happen. Well, it was never implemented. That's still a good strategy for today. I'd love to see it implemented now. But we need good people to run. And I would say, no, we can't compromise. What we can do, this is what we're able to do. I'd say this is as far as we can go in terms of looking at the political climate and trying to, I guess, thread that needle in terms of electability, where people are at in the culture at the time and where the truth stands. We cannot tell lies. We cannot speak evil and be for evil policies, period. Now, if there's some sort of a compromise to be struck in some area, what we have to say, if, for instance, if we said this on pro-life, if we said, look, 100% it is wrong to ever kill an innocent human being, to ever kill a baby by abortion, that is evil, that is wrong, we must not do it. At the same time, I look around and I see the culture is not understanding that at this point. So we need to educate that culture. That's why I'm making it clear in what I'm saying right now. Let's keep proclaiming the truth on it. In the meantime, how can we move the ball forward to that day when we can end this completely? So you're clear about the goal, and then you're clear about we're going to take steps forward, and this is the next reasonable step forward. You could come out with something like that. But to just lie and just pretend that, well, there's no goal here, it's just kick it back to the states and everything is fine. You cannot do that. That is committing an evil. You're saying you're for murdering some children without any sort of qualification at all. We cannot do evil to bring about a good. It's wrong. So we need people to stand up and always tell the truth. And then, yeah, we could take steps, but we got to always proclaim the truth.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.